Something strange happened to me last week at a party, and it ended my 3-year relationship that night. I stood in our bedroom with my shirt half buttoned while my girlfriend Kelsey leaned toward the bathroom mirror with her makeup bag open on the counter, and as she angled her face closer to the glass, she lifted one hand between us with her palm facing outward like a stop sign, then she pointed 2 fingers toward herself, pointed those same fingers toward the hallway as if indicating the gathering we were heading to, and finally moved her fingers apart in a slow separating motion that placed an invisible gap between where she stood and where I stood. Kelsey repeated that separating motion again, with more precision, using both hands this time, as though arranging 2 objects on a shelf, and when my hand drifted toward her waist as if to steady her, while she shifted her stance, she guided my wrist down and away with a small firm push that left my arm hanging at my side. She turned slightly and smoothed the black dress over her hip with the flat of her palm. Then she pulled her phone from the counter and held the screen toward me at chest height, and the display showed a short typed line with a line break and an emoji. And after I looked at it, she tapped the screen twice and made the same separating motion again. Then she turned the phone back toward herself and slid it into her purse as if closing the subject, without leaving room for negotiation. I finished buttoning my shirt while watching her in the mirror, and my nod was small and slow, more like a mechanical agreement than an enthusiastic one, and Kelsey's shoulders lowered as though that motion alone was what she needed before continuing. She capped a tube, dropped it into her bag, zipped the bag, and lifted her purse strap onto her shoulder, and as the strap settled, she reached for her keys on the counter with a practiced sweep of her fingers. I followed her into the living room where her shoes sat neatly near the entry table, and she stepped into them without sitting, balancing on one foot while she steadied herself against the wall with 2 fingertips, and once both shoes were on, she checked her phone again, scrolling with her thumb while she walked in a straight line toward the door. I picked up my wallet and keys from the small bowl by the door, and in the same motion I noticed the framed photo on the shelf had been turned slightly away from the room, as if someone had nudged it absent-mindedly, so I turned it back to face forward, and the picture of Kelsey and me standing close together in a casual setting returned to its usual angle, even though the gesture she had made in the bathroom was still fresh in the air like a boundary line that had just been drawn. In the parking lot, Kelsey walked ahead, and the distance between us formed naturally because she never slowed to match my pace. And when I reached toward her hand, she adjusted her purse strap at the exact moment my fingers would have touched, leaving my hand to drop back to my side while she continued forward. She slid into the passenger seat and closed the door with a clean motion, and before I started the engine, she leaned toward the dark window to check her reflection. Then she lowered the visor and used it as a mirror, and her fingertips moved quickly along her hairline as she tucked a strand behind her ear and pressed it into place. I drove through familiar streets while Kelsey kept her phone in her lap, and at each stop she typed rapidly with both thumbs, pausing only long enough to glance up when the car rolled again, and the glow of the screen remained on her face as if it were the most important light in the car. My eyes flicked between the road and her hands, and each time I looked toward her, I saw her shoulders angled slightly away from me, not in a dramatic turn, but in a way that kept her body oriented toward her own screen rather than toward the shared space of the car. Later, the building where my friend Tessa lived rose ahead with tall windows and a clean glass entrance, and guests gathered in small clusters near the sidewalk, while others moved through the doors in pairs and trios. Kelsey straightened in her seat as soon as the building came into view, and she checked her hair again by lifting a section and letting it fall. Then she opened her purse and pulled out a small card holder, flicked it open, flicked it shut, and returned it to the purse without removing anything. I eased the car to the curb and stopped, and Kelsey waited for a group of guests to pass before opening her door. And when she stepped onto the sidewalk, she did not pause beside the car, the way she usually did when we arrived somewhere together. She turned immediately toward the entrance and walked with quick steps that carried her away from the car. Without looking back, and at the doors she paused only long enough to lift her hand in a brief wave that looked like a courtesy given to a driver, rather than a gesture shared between partners. Then she slipped inside and disappeared behind the glass. I remained in the driver's seat with my hands on the steering wheel, and the entrance stayed in view through the windshield, while other guests continued moving in and out of frame. After that, I shifted the car into gear, pulled away from the curb, and drove back through streets I had traveled countless times, and the distance from the building increased until it was replaced by intersections, storefronts, and parked cars. When I reached our apartment, I unlocked the door and stepped inside alone, and everything in the living room was in the same place. It had been earlier, including Kelsey's blanket draped over the couch arm and her water bottle on the side table, and that unchanged arrangement made the space feel more like a display than a shared home. 95% of viewers aren't subscribed. Subscribe, it's free and helps more than you think. Turn on notifications for more. I set my keys down on the counter and stood with my palms on the edge, and my eyes moved across the kitchen surface where a used tissue sat near the sink with a faint smear of makeup, and the small mark looked out of place against the clean counter in a way that drew my attention back to the bathroom mirror and the separating gesture. I walked to the bedroom closet, reached to the top shelf and pulled down an old duffel bag, and a small puff of dust lifted as the fabric shifted. I placed the bag on the bed, tugged the zipper open, and spread the sides apart so the bag held its shape. And then I began moving items into it with steady, deliberate motions. I started with the things that carried my name and my daily use, like my laptop, my charger, my passport, and a stack of documents from the drawer where we kept paperwork. And each time I placed something into the bag, I pressed it flat so it took up minimal space. I opened my dresser and removed shirts and jeans, folding each one into a rectangle before stacking it into the duffel. And the movement was repetitive and consistent, as though I were packing for a trip rather than stripping a room of my presence. I pulled toiletries from the bathroom cabinet that were clearly mine, including a toothbrush, a razor, and a small bottle of medication, and I kept my hands focused on the task, closing drawers and cabinets after each removal, so nothing looked ransacked. Kelsey's belongings remained in place as I moved around them, including her jewelry tray on the dresser, and her skincare bottles lined up along the bathroom shelf, and those items stayed untouched as if they were protected by an invisible rule that marked the boundary between what belonged to me and what belonged to her. I opened the closet again and took my extra pair of shoes, sliding them into the duffel along the sides to keep them from crushing the folded clothes, and then I reached under the bed and pulled out a small box where I kept cables and spare devices, selecting only the ones I used and leaving the rest behind. The bedspread wrinkled as I leaned across it to reach items, and the wrinkle stayed there, a visible sign of movement in a room that was otherwise arranged to look calm and orderly. Later, I moved to the kitchen and opened the drawer where we kept stationery, and I pulled out a notepad and a pen. Then I sat at the counter and wrote 2 short lines in my handwriting, keeping the letters large and clear. And when I finished, I tore the page cleanly from the pad and pressed it flat against the counter with my palm. The note contained a visible reference to the separating instruction Kelsey had given earlier, and it also contained a visible statement that my belongings were no longer staying in the apartment. And even without anyone reading it aloud, the page itself communicated the change through the plainness of the writing and the finality of its placement. I set the note near the center of the counter where it would be impossible to miss. And then I turned the pen sideways and placed it beside the page as if completing the scene with a deliberate stop. I returned to the bedroom, closed the duffel, pulled the zipper all the way to the end, and lifted the bag by its handles, and the weight pulled my shoulder down slightly as I carried it into the living room. I scanned the room once more, and my eyes settled on objects that had been shared by default, like a spare blanket, a framed photo, and a pair of mugs in the drying rack. And I left them where they were because they were not necessary for what came next. I slipped my feet into my shoes, picked up the duffel again, and walked out of the apartment, and the door clicked shut behind me, while the interior remained visible for a brief moment through the narrowing gap. Then the gap disappeared entirely as the latch caught. After that, I walked to my car with the duffel pulling at my arm, placed it in the trunk, and closed the lid with a firm downward press, and the trunk sealed with a clean alignment that made the bag vanish from view. I sat in the driver's seat, started the engine, and pulled out of the lot, and the building receded behind me as the car moved forward. Then the corner turned and the building disappeared from sight. Later, I drove to a small hotel that sat near a cluster of businesses, parked beneath a street lamp, and carried my duffel inside. And at the front desk, a card reader sat on the counter. My card moved through the transaction, and a key card appeared beside a printed receipt before I carried it away. I walked down a hallway lined with doors, stopped at my room, slid the key card through the slot, and pushed the door open. And once inside, I set the duffel on the bed and opened it to remove only what I needed immediately, placing my laptop and documents on the desk and leaving the rest packed as if I might move again at any moment. Not long after that, I sat on the bed with my phone in my hand, and the screen remained unchanged for a long stretch of time, showing no new notifications from Kelsey, while the battery icon dropped 1 bar at a time. Later, an incoming call appeared from an unfamiliar number, and I lifted the phone to accept it, holding it in front of my face for a moment before bringing it closer, and my eyes stayed fixed on the screen as the call connected and the timer began counting upward. My friend Tessa's name remained on my phone screen beneath the unfamiliar number, and I kept the call active while I stared at the timer counting upward. Then I shifted off the bed and moved closer to the desk, so my laptop and the flat surface under my hands gave me something steady to hold on to. Tessa stayed connected long enough for a stream of new notifications to appear on my screen from the same number, and each one arrived as a separate bubble that stacked upward in quick succession, and I watched my phone fill with short lines broken by abrupt pauses, as if the typing on the other end kept stopping and starting. The first bubble included a photo taken inside the loft, showing a crowded room with my girlfriend Kelsey near the center in her black dress, and her posture angled into my girlfriend's friend Tessa, with an arm draped around Tessa's shoulders, in a way that looked staged for an audience. And in the same frame, a tall figure stood close to Kelsey with a hand resting on her lower back, while Kelsey leaned slightly into that contact as if inviting it. The next bubble contained a second photo taken moments later, and this one showed Kelsey holding a drink with her wrist turned outward, so her bracelet caught attention, and the tall figure stood even closer while Kelsey's face tilted up toward the figure's face, and the space between them looked smaller than the space Kelsey had insisted on creating between her and me earlier. I lowered myself into the desk chair while my phone continued to vibrate with incoming bubbles, and my fingers tightened around the edges until the case pressed into my skin, and I watched the next bubble arrive as a short video clip that began playing automatically in a looping preview. The clip showed Kelsey on a couch with her legs crossed, and the tall figure sat beside her with a casual sprawl that took up space, and Kelsey's hand moved across the figure's forearm in a slow stroke that ended with her fingers hooking under the sleeve edge, and then she leaned closer as if guiding attention toward the figure while nearby guests watched with their phones raised. The clip ended with Kelsey lifting her phone to take a selfie with the figure, and her free hand made a small dismissive motion toward the background, as if pushing everyone else out of importance. My thumb hovered over the clip, and I replayed it once. Then I paused it with a tap, and left it frozen on a frame where Kelsey's hand remained on the figure's arm, because the still image felt like proof that could not move away from what it showed. After that, another bubble arrived with a screenshot from a social media profile that displayed a glossy photo of a sports car parked near a modern building, and the name at the top read Dylan. And underneath it, a short caption line appeared with a string of emojis, and the timestamp showed it had been posted recently. A second screenshot followed immediately, and this one showed a group message thread where multiple names appeared, and in the middle of the thread, a message line contained Kelsey's name paired with a heart emoji, and beneath it another text line contained the phrase audition, in a way that was impossible to misread even without any audio attached to it, and as I stared at the word, my stomach tightened and my shoulders rose as if bracing for impact. The next bubble contained a photo of a bathroom door inside the loft with the doorknob visible, and in the lower corner of the photo, my girlfriend's heels appeared on the tile outside the door, angled inward toward the closed panel, as if she had stopped there and could not decide whether to go in or walk away. I slid my phone onto the desk surface and leaned forward until my forearms rested beside it, and I watched more bubbles arrive, each one stacking on top of the last, and I forced myself to scroll slowly so I could see each image clearly, rather than letting the stream blur into a single flood. A new photo showed Kelsey standing near a kitchen island inside the loft, with her purse strap sliding down her shoulder, and her hands pressed flat on the counter while she stared down at the surface. And in the background, two guests stood close together, looking at their own phone screens, as if reading something that had just been shared. Another image showed Tessa holding her own phone near her chest with the screen facing outward, and the screen displayed a message thread with multiple participants, and Kelsey stood beside her with one hand hovering near the phone as if trying to pull it away, and the angle of Kelsey's wrist suggested urgency and embarrassment. My eyes stayed fixed on Kelsey's hand in that frame, because her fingers looked tense in a way that matched the separating gesture she had used earlier, and the contrast between her earlier control and her current scramble made the scene feel like the ground had shifted under her. Later, a final bubble arrived with a clear overhead photo of a coffee table scattered with cups and napkins, and on the table a folded note card lay open with handwriting visible, and the writing included Kelsey's name and Dylan's name, together with a short promise written in thick strokes. The handwriting did not match mine, and the card looked freshly handled because a fingerprint smudge marked one corner, and even though I could not see who had written it, the placement of the card in the center of the table made it look like an object that had been displayed for everyone nearby to notice. I sat back in the chair and let my hands fall to my lap, while my phone remained on the desk, and my eyes moved from image to image again, as if repetition would produce a different result. But every replay stayed identical, and every frame made the situation more permanent. Not long after that, my phone began lighting up with incoming calls from Kelsey, and the contact name appeared repeatedly on the screen while the device vibrated against the desk, and I watched the first call ring out without touching it. Then I watched a second one appear immediately after, and then a third. The incoming notifications shifted from calls to messages as the missed rings stacked, and I watched the message preview lines change from short demands to longer blocks of text that filled the screen, and each new one arrived close enough to the last that the phone barely stopped moving. I did not open any of them, and instead I picked up the phone and turned it face down on the desk so the screen was hidden. Then I slid it farther away as if distance could lessen the pressure. After that, I stood and walked to the window, and I pulled the curtain aside slightly so the parking lot lights appeared below, and my reflection in the glass showed a pale face and a collar slightly crooked from the way I had been tugging at it earlier. I released the curtain and returned to the desk, and I lifted the duffel bag onto the chair to check that everything inside stayed packed tight. And when I found a gap along one side, I opened the bag and added a few more items that made sense to take while I still could, including my spare hard drive and a small folder that contained documents I used for work. I zipped the bag again and placed it beside the door. Then I moved my phone into the duffel's outer pocket as if storing it there could help me resist touching it, and the action looked almost ceremonial because it was the same kind of deliberate motion I used when putting tools away after finishing a job. Later I lay down on the bed, keeping my clothes on, and I stared at the ceiling while my hands rested flat on my chest, and the only movement in the room came from the small blinking light on my laptop charger and the slow sweep of headlights passing outside. My phone continued, vibrating inside the duffel pocket in intermittent bursts, and each burst shifted the fabric slightly as if the device were trying to escape, and I reached down once to press the pocket closed with my palm. Then I left my hand there until the vibrations stopped. After that, I rolled onto my side and pulled the hotel blanket over my legs, and I kept my eyes open until my focus began drifting, and the last thing I saw before my eyelids finally closed was the edge of the note card photo on my phone screen still burned into my memory like a stubborn afterimage. The next moment, I opened my eyes and found daylight pushing through the curtain gap, and the room looked unchanged, except for the duffel on the floor and my shoes near the bed, and the sight of those items made it clear I had not returned to the apartment during the night. I sat up and reached for the duffel pocket, and as soon as I pulled my phone out, the screen lit up with missed call counts and a wall of message previews that filled the notification shade from top to bottom. Kelsey's name repeated down the list, and mixed in between were notifications from my girlfriend's mother Brenda and my girlfriend's sister Haley, and the pattern of names made it clear that Kelsey had pulled her family into the situation as quickly as possible. I scrolled without opening any message, and the previews shifted as I moved, showing short lines that changed from blame to pleading and then back to blame again, and the repetition of my name across the previews looked like a hand clawing at a door that would not open. I carried the phone into the bathroom and set it on the counter while I turned on the faucet, and I splashed water on my face and patted it dry with a towel. And when I looked up, my eyes were red around the edges as if I had been staring too hard at screens and too little at anything real. I brushed my teeth with quick stiff motions. Then I returned to the main room and sat at the desk again, and my laptop screen woke as I lifted the lid, displaying the security project I had left open from the night before, with diagrams and lists that looked orderly and solvable compared to what my phone was showing. I reached for the phone and opened the most recent message thread without scrolling back, and the top of the conversation showed Kelsey's name with a series of unread markers, and the newest messages included multiple lines stacked together, each arriving with a timestamp close to the previous one, and the phrasing in the previews framed my departure as an overreaction while framing her actions as harmless, and even without any audio. The attempt to rewrite reality was visible in the way the words were arranged. After that, I returned to the home screen, opened my contacts, and located Kelsey's number, and I pressed the option that prevented any more calls and messages from reaching me, and and the confirmation icon appeared immediately as a small lock symbol beside her contact card. I repeated the same action for Brenda and for Haley, and each time the lock icon appeared, it felt like a physical bolt sliding into place. I moved to social apps and removed Kelsey from every connection list I could find, and the interface changed instantly, replacing shared history with blank spaces and prompts to reconnect, and the erasure looked harsh and mechanical, like an amputated limb on a digital body. When I finished, I placed the phone face down again, and I held both hands on the desk for a moment until my fingers stopped tapping unconsciously. Then I stood and began packing the last few loose items from the room. Later, I checked out of the hotel, carried my duffel to the car, and placed it in the trunk again. And once the trunk closed, I sat behind the wheel and kept my hands there without starting the engine, and the steering wheel texture pressed into my palms as if grounding me. After that, I started the car and drove toward my friend Ethan's place, and the route took me past familiar intersections and a stretch of road lined with small shops, and the normalcy of everything outside the windshield contrasted with the locked icons and blocked names on my phone. At a stoplight, my phone lit up once, and the notification showed Ethan's name with an incoming message, and I picked it up and opened it immediately because the name was a lifeline rather than a threat. Ethan's message contained only a request for my location and a suggestion that I park in a specific spot, and the clarity of that instruction felt like a rope thrown toward me, so I typed a brief confirmation and sent it. Then I set the phone back down and kept driving. When I arrived at Ethan's building, I parked where he had indicated, and Ethan met me outside wearing casual clothes, and he lifted a hand in greeting while his other hand held a coffee cup, and his body language showed concern without needing any spoken explanation. He stepped closer and pulled the duffel from my trunk with a firm grip. Then he guided me toward the entrance with a light touch at my shoulder, and the gesture placed me in motion again, when I might have stayed frozen in the driver's seat. Inside Ethan's apartment, I set the duffel near the couch, and Ethan cleared a space by moving a stack of blankets and a pillow to one side. Then he pointed to the cleared area and placed the coffee cup on the table as if setting down a tool, so both hands were free for whatever came next. I sank onto the couch, leaned forward with my elbows on my knees, and stared at the floor while Ethan sat in a chair across from me, and the room held only our visible movements, the placement of objects, and the fact that I had arrived carrying everything I chose to keep. Not long after that, my phone buzzed again, and this time the notification showed Tessa's name, and I opened it to find a new batch of images from inside the loft, including one that showed Kelsey standing near the building's entrance with her shoes in her hand, and her hair messy from constant touching, and her phone pressed to her ear as she paced in a tight circle that made her look trapped by her own urgency. Another image showed Dalen near the kitchen island, with a grin and a raised glass, while guests around him held up their phones as if recording, and Kelsey stood behind him with her face turned away from the cameras, and her hand covering her mouth, and the posture looked like an attempt to hide from the scene that she had helped create. The new images from my friend Tessa kept stacking on my phone screen while I sat on my friend Ethan's couch with my duffel on the floor beside my feet, and as I scrolled through them, I saw my girlfriend Kelsey near the loft entrance with her shoes in her hand and her purse hanging open, and I saw her pacing in a tight loop that brought her back to the same spot again and again. And then I saw another frame where Kelsey stood near a group of guests with her phone held out, as if trying to take control of whatever was being passed around, and in that frame, my friend Tessa's own phone screen was visible in someone else's camera view, showing a message thread where my name appeared beside a long block of text that had already been read by more than one set of eyes. I kept scrolling until I reached a photo where Kelsey's hands pressed hard against a kitchen counter while her shoulders hunched forward, and a row of raised phones pointed toward the center of the room, as if the crowd had decided the situation itself was the entertainment, and the way the phones were angled made it clear that what mattered most in that moment was not any private explanation, but the public record being created in real time. My friend Ethan leaned forward in the chair across from me, and he reached for my phone, only after I held it out. Then he kept it steady in both hands while his eyes moved from image to image, and when he finished, he returned it and shifted his coffee cup farther away from the edge of the table, as if making the space safer for whatever came next. I set the phone down on my knee and opened my duffel, and I pulled out a small folder of documents and a spare set of keys, and I laid them on the coffee table in a neat line, as if organizing visible proof of what I had already done. My friend Ethan slid a notepad and pen toward me from a side drawer, and I used them to write down a list of tasks in large block letters, including items like forwarding my mail, changing my passwords, and collecting the last things from the apartment that I still needed. And when I finished, I tore the page free and pressed it flat under my palm, as if pinning it into reality. Later, my phone lit up again with more notifications from my friend Tessa, and among the images was a clear photo of Kelsey holding her phone toward a small circle of guests, while her other hand pointed at the screen, and the guests' faces were turned toward the display, in a way that looked like group consumption rather than private concern. And in the corner of the frame, a second phone captured the scene from behind, showing Kelsey centered like a presenter while the room formed a loose semicircle around her. I watched that frame until my thumb stopped moving. Then I moved to the next image where Kelsey stood in the loft bathroom area, with her purse strap sliding off her shoulder, and the door behind her was partly open, and her reflection in a mirror showed her eyes fixed on her own screen as her fingers flew over the keyboard, and the posture looked less like repair, and more like rapid construction of a narrative that could survive without me. After that, I placed my phone on the table and opened my laptop, and I moved through account pages with methodical clicks that changed my passwords, updated recovery email addresses, and removed shared devices, and each completed step produced a checkmark or confirmation banner that stayed visible for a moment before disappearing. And I watched those little confirmations appear and vanish as if they were locks snapping shut one after another. I changed my banking login, then I changed my email, then I changed every social account that still connected my name to shared history, and as I worked, I kept the notepad list beside the keyboard and crossed off each item with a thick line that made the task visibly finished. My friend Ethan remained in the room, and he moved only when he needed to bring me a charger or clear a space, and his actions were practical and steady, including plugging my laptop into the wall and placing my duffel nearer to the door. So leaving again would require less effort. Not long after that, my phone displayed a new notification that was not from my friend Tessa, and the preview showed my name inside a long block of text, posted publicly on a platform where Kelsey still had access to our shared connections. And I opened it, and watched the screen fill with a post that placed my name next to words like controlling and jealous. And the post included a photo of Kelsey taken at an earlier event where she stood smiling beside a group of friends, and the contrast between that curated image and the accusations beneath it made the attempt feel obvious, even without any private explanation. Under the post, a line of comments had already begun forming, and small profile pictures appeared beside short reactions and emojis, and the count of responses rose while I watched, and the increasing number was a visible measurement of how far the story was spreading. I did not type into the comment box, and instead I took a screenshot that captured the entire post. Then I took another screenshot that captured the comment count, and I placed both images into a folder on my laptop labeled with Kelsey's name and a plain file date format, and the act of saving it looked like preparation rather than participation. Later, a second post appeared on Kelsey's page with another image, this time a photo of a packed suitcase near the apartment door, with a corner of my duffel visible, and beneath it a caption framed the scene as abandonment, and the post included a cropped view that excluded the note I had left on the kitchen counter, and the cropping itself became a visible choice that shaped what strangers would assume. I took another screenshot of that post and saved it beside the first. Then I opened my own profile and made it impossible for Kelsey to tag me or view my page through shared links, and the settings toggles changed from open to closed with small sliding motions that mirrored the physical closing of doors. When I finished, I shut my laptop and rubbed my palms together. Then I stood and paced once across Ethan's living room, stopping at the window briefly before turning back, and my movement had the same pattern as the pacing I had seen in Kelsey's photo earlier, except mine ended with a decision, rather than more posting. After that, my friend Ethan drove with me back toward the apartment complex, and I kept my phone in my pocket while my hands stayed clasped around the small keyring that still fit the old locks. And when we pulled into the lot, I scanned the parked cars until I spotted Kelsey's vehicle, and it sat closer to the entrance than usual, as if she had arrived in a hurry and grabbed the first available spot. My friend Ethan stayed in the driver's seat while I stepped out with my duffel strap over one shoulder, and I moved toward the building entrance with a direct line that did not drift toward any window or neighbor, and the way my feet landed on the pavement felt heavy and final. Inside the building, I climbed the stairs, reached our door, and placed my hand on the knob, and as I turned it, I felt the familiar resistance of the lock before it released, and the door swung inward to reveal the same living room arrangement I had left behind, including Kelsey's blanket on the couch arm, and her decorative tray on the coffee table, and the unchanged placement made the whole space look like a set, waiting for actors to return. Kelsey stood near the kitchen counter with her phone in one hand and a crumpled tissue in the other, and her shoulders rose as the door opened, and her feet shifted forward quickly, as if she intended to close distance before I could move past the threshold. I lifted my free hand with my palm facing outward, the same barrier gesture she had used earlier in the mirror, and I kept my arm extended long enough for her to stop, and the stop showed in the way her weight rocked back onto her heels. Kelsey's phone remained angled toward me, and the screen was filled with a long message draft that she had prepared, and her thumb hovered near the send icon, as if the whole encounter were being treated like another typed exchange, rather than a shared space. I stepped inside without moving closer to her, and I walked directly to the bedroom with the duffel strap still on my shoulder, and I began pulling drawers open and closed with quick checks that located the last items I needed, including a small box of documents and a set of spare cables that had been left behind. Kelsey followed at a careful distance that kept her just outside arm's reach, and her hands moved constantly, alternating between wiping her face with the tissue and tapping her phone screen as if trying to keep the moment under control through digital effort. I returned to the kitchen and saw my note still on the counter, but it had been moved and partly folded, and one corner was bent as if it had been gripped too tightly, and beside it a second sheet of paper lay open with Kelsey's handwriting, and the lines were heavy and uneven as if written quickly. I did not pick up Kelsey's paper, and instead I took my own note, unfolded it, smoothed it flat with my palm, and photographed it where it sat so the text and its placement were preserved. Then I photographed Kelsey's sheet as well without lifting it, and I saved both images into the same folder on my phone, so a visible record existed of what had been left in the space. Kelsey moved closer during that moment and reached toward my phone, and I stepped sideways so the counter stayed between us, and the shift forced her hand to stop midair and drop back to her side. After that, I walked to the living room shelf, lifted the framed photo I had straightened earlier, and turned it face down on the shelf, so the back of the frame faced outward, and the motion was slow and deliberate, and the face-down frame became a physical sign that the image was no longer being displayed. I reached for a small stack of mail near the entry table, separated out envelopes that had my name on them, and slid them into my duffel. Then I moved to the coat closet and removed a jacket that was mine, and I folded it over my arm while keeping my body angled toward the door. Kelsey stood near the couch with her phone still in her hand, and she lifted it again to show me the screen. And on the screen, a long block of text sat ready above the keyboard, and she moved the phone closer as if forcing me to look. But I kept my eyes on the floor space between us and the path to the exit. My friend Ethan remained outside in the car, and when I stepped into the hallway with my duffel and jacket, I closed the apartment door behind me and pulled the handle firmly until the latch caught, and the closure separated Kelsey from the hallway space without any need for additional interaction. I walked down the stairs, crossed the lot, and placed my things into Ethan's trunk. And when I sat in the passenger seat, I kept my hands on my knees and watched the building entrance in the side mirror. Not long after that, Kelsey appeared at the door with her phone held high, and she stopped on the top step and pointed the device toward the parking lot as if recording. And then she walked quickly toward the street, scanning cars as she moved. And when she reached the sidewalk, she paused and looked around as if deciding which direction to chase. My friend Ethan started the engine and drove away without circling back, and the building shrank behind us until the mirror held only traffic and distance. Later, back at Ethan's apartment, I opened my phone again and found new posts already live on Kelsey's page, including one that showed a blurry photo of my car from a distance with a caption that implied escape, and beneath it more comments stacked, and some included screenshots of my earlier profile photos that Kelsey had pulled from old tags. I gathered those images one by one, capturing the posts and comment counts as they grew, and I placed them into the folder beside the earlier screenshots. Then I opened my email and created filters that automatically routed Kelsey's addresses and any new unknown addresses, containing her name into a separate archive, and the filter rules appeared as clean lines in a settings panel that made the choice look final. My friend Tessa sent another message thread, screenshot, and this time it showed a group chat where multiple people reacted to Kelsey's posts, and in the center of the thread, my friend Tessa's name appeared alongside, a warning not to share my location, and the message included a red exclamation emoji that made the warning feel urgent and visible. After that, I opened a rental listing site on my laptop and scrolled through apartment photos and floor plans, and I narrowed the search until I found a small one-bedroom listing that allowed immediate move-in through a self-service process, and the listing included instructions for picking up a key from a lockbox near the building entrance. I filled out the application fields, uploaded the required documents from my folder, and submitted the payment through an online portal, and the confirmation page displayed a new address and a code for the lockbox, and the page also displayed a move-in checklist that included setting up utilities and scheduling delivery times. I printed the confirmation page on Ethan's printer, and the paper slid out with crisp black text that made the new address real in my hands. Then I placed it inside my document folder and kept it there as a physical anchor. Later, my friend Ethan drove with me to the new building, and we parked near the entrance where a small metal lockbox was attached to a railing. And I entered the code and watched the box pop open, revealing a key ring with 2 keys and a small tag. I took the keys, closed the lockbox, and walked to the unit door indicated by the confirmation page. Then I inserted the key and turned it until the lock released. And when the door opened, the apartment interior appeared empty except for the basic fixtures and a single set of blinds covering the window. I walked through each room with my printed checklist in hand, checking off items like working lights and running water, and the plainness of the space made my duffel bag look like the only piece of history crossing the threshold. I placed the duffel on the floor near the bedroom wall. Then I returned to the living area and set my laptop on the counter, and I opened it again to update my address on every account that required it, and each updated form displayed the new location in a neat text field that replaced the old one. Not long after that, as I stood in the empty apartment with the keys in my pocket and the printed confirmation page on the counter, my phone lit up with a notification from my friend Tessa that included a fresh screenshot of a private message Kelsey had sent to a group of mutual contacts, and the message included a request for my new address and a claim that I had taken something that belonged to her, and the request ended with multiple question marks that made the demand look frantic and escalating. I set the phone down beside the printed checklist, picked up my duffel again, and began unpacking only the essentials into the empty drawers and cabinets, and each item I placed into the new space made it harder for the old space to pull me back, while the screenshots on my screen continued multiplying in the background like a trail. Kelsey was determined to keep feeding forward. My phone remained on the counter beside the printed checklist, while I moved my duffel into the bedroom and placed my laptop on the floor near an outlet, and as I unpacked, I kept my actions limited to what the empty space immediately needed, including sliding shirts into a drawer, placing toiletries along the sink edge, and setting my document folder flat inside a cabinet where it would not bend. After that, I returned to the living area and opened the blinds to let daylight fill the room. Then I dragged the duffel to the corner and folded it down to reduce its footprint, and the visible reduction of the bag made the apartment look less like a stopover and more like a place that could hold my things without constant movement. Not long after that, I picked up my phone again and scrolled through the screenshot Tessa had sent. Then I swiped to my own screenshot folder and compared Kelsey's new claim with the older posts I had already captured, and the repeated pattern of captions, comment counts, and cropped photos created a timeline made entirely of images and text blocks that could be verified by anyone holding the same device. Later, I opened my email and watched new messages populate the inbox, and among them were automated notifications that my accounts had been accessed from devices connected to the old apartment, and those notifications displayed location approximations and device names that matched items we once shared. I opened the account security pages and removed every device that had any connection to Kelsey. Then I enabled additional protections that required extra confirmation for new logins, and each toggle slide ended with a new icon appearing beside the feature name, making the protections visible rather than abstract. After that, I created a separate folder labeled with Kelsey's name and moved every screenshot into it. Then I duplicated the entire folder into cloud storage with a backup indicator that turned from gray to green, and the green check marks became a visual sign that the record existed in more than one place. Not long after that, a new notification appeared from a social platform where Kelsey still had mutual contacts, and the preview showed my face in a thumbnail from an old photo beside a caption that included my name and a claim that I had taken property, and the post also included a cropped image of a drawer from our apartment with empty space, highlighted as if absence itself were proof. I opened the post and scrolled slowly, and as I did, I saw comments underneath that included screenshots of my profile and a blurred map-like image that looked like a pinned location, and the presence of that map image made my shoulders tense as I leaned closer to the screen. I took a screenshot that captured the entire post. Then I took another screenshot capturing the comment thread where the map image sat, and I saved both into my folder. Then I opened the platform settings and removed my ability to be tagged, and the setting switch moved into the off position with a clean slide that immediately altered how my profile appeared to strangers. After that, I walked around the empty apartment and placed small practical barriers in place, including closing all windows, engaging the secondary lock on the unit door, and moving a chair to a corner that allowed me to keep the main entry in view from where I planned to sleep on an air mattress later. I placed my keys in the same spot on the counter and kept my phone charger plugged in. Then I taped my printed confirmation page inside the cabinet door, so the new address information would not sit exposed on the counter, and the tape strips created a visible decision to keep certain details out of casual view. Later, I sat on the floor with my back against the wall, placed the document folder on my knees, and sorted the papers into smaller stacks, including the lease confirmation, the lockbox instructions, and the printed screenshots of the note I had left behind. And when the piles were arranged, I photographed them as a group, so their order and existence were captured in a single frame. Not long after that, my phone lit up again with a new notification from Tessa, and this time, the screenshot showed a group chat where multiple names reacted to Kelsey's newest post, and among the reactions was a cropped image of a building facade that looked similar to mine, and beneath it a comment suggested that Kelsey had been driving around trying to match the facade. I saved the screenshot, then I opened my messages and sent Tessa a brief instruction by text that included a request for her to stop sharing any details about my location with anyone, and I watched the delivered indicator appear beside the outgoing bubble as a simple confirmation that the boundary had been set. After that, I sent the same instruction to Ethan, and the delivered indicator appeared again, and the repetition of that visible confirmation felt like placing signs around a perimeter. Later, I opened a delivery app and ordered a cheap air mattress, a set of sheets, and a basic door wedge, and the order summary page displayed my new address and an estimated arrival window, and the presence of that address inside a commercial confirmation page made it feel more real than any emotional marker could. I tracked the delivery status until the car icon moved closer. Then I met the drop-off at the building entrance without letting the courier come to my unit door, and I carried the packages upstairs and placed them against the wall inside my apartment. I unboxed the air mattress and spread it on the floor. Then I connected the pump, watched it inflate into shape, and laid the sheets over it, and the simple physical act of setting a place to sleep turned the empty room into a functional one. After that, I placed the door wedge near the entry and tested it by pushing the door inward slightly, and the wedge held firm. Then I left it on the floor as a visible layer of control. Not long after that, my phone displayed another social notification, and this one came from an account I recognized as belonging to my friend Miles, and the preview showed a screenshot of Kelsey's post alongside a short line of text from Miles that looked like a warning. I opened Miles's message thread and saw a screenshot he had taken of a private message he received from Kelsey, and the private message contained a request for my new address and a claim that she needed to retrieve items, and her message included a screenshot of an old photo of my car to prove she had been watching. I saved Miles's screenshot into my folder. Then I sent Miles a short text that thanked him and included the same instruction not to share my location, and I watched the delivered indicator appear beside my outgoing message as another bolt sliding into place. Later, I opened my laptop and drafted a short email to my workplace address from my personal account, and the email included a simple notice that my personal relationship situation had become public online and that I was taking steps to keep my personal data secure, and I attached a small selection of screenshots showing Kelsey's posts that mentioned my name, and the attachments displayed as tiny thumbnails beneath the email body. I sent the email and watched it move into the sent folder. Then I opened my work calendar and added a private block that listed tasks like changing security questions and updating my emergency contact, and the block appeared as a plain rectangle in the day view, visible proof that I was treating the situation like a practical risk rather than a private argument. Not long after that, I received a notification that someone had attempted to reset a password on an old streaming account that Kelsey and I once used together, and the reset email included a timestamp and a device location marker, and the marker matched the area near our old apartment. I opened the streaming account, removed all devices, changed the password, and then canceled the subscription, and the cancellation confirmation appeared as a page with a large check mark, and the finality of that icon felt like closing another shared door. After that, I opened a shared photo backup service we had once connected, and I removed Kelsey's access, and the service displayed a list of people with access that shrank by 1 when I confirmed, and the shrinking list created a visible reduction of her reach. Later, the next social notification arrived with a new post from Kelsey, and this time the post included a photo of my note on the counter, but the photo was taken at an angle that cut off the most important line and emphasized only the portion that made her look abandoned, and beneath it, she had added a caption that framed the departure as cruelty. I opened the post and zoomed in on the photo, and as I enlarged it, the missing line remained missing because the cropping was intentional. So I pulled up my own photo of the note taken flat and clear, and I compared the two on my screen by switching back and forth rapidly, and the contrast made her manipulation visible through composition alone. I saved the comparison by taking a screen recording that captured both images and their timestamps. Then I placed that recording into the folder, and the file icon appeared beside the screenshots like a heavier piece of evidence. Not long after that, I received a new message thread from my friend Nora, and the thread included a screenshot of Kelsey's profile story, where she had posted a blurry clip of her walking past our old apartment building with her phone pointed at the street, and the clip included a brief pan across parked cars as if she were searching for mine. Nora's screenshot also included a location sticker that Kelsey had added, and even though it referred to the old neighborhood, the presence of a location sticker confirmed that Kelsey was turning physical movement into online content. I saved Nora's screenshot. Then I opened my own phone settings and disabled location sharing for every social app, and the toggles moved into the off position one by one, leaving a row of gray switches that looked like a control panel shut down. Later, I sat on the floor beside the air mattress and arranged my documents again. And this time I added a printed copy of my new lease confirmation and a printed copy of the email I had sent to my workplace, and I stacked them beneath the screenshots as if building a layered binder of the situation. I used my phone to photograph the entire stack with the edges aligned. Then I placed the stack into a slim folder and slid it into my backpack, and the backpack moved from the corner of the room to a spot near the door, as if preparing for sudden travel. After that, I opened a small safe deposit app on my phone and created an encrypted note that listed key facts in plain terms, including the date range of posts, the names of friends who had provided screenshots, and the steps I had taken to block Kelsey across platforms, and I saved the note and watched the app display a lock icon beside it, reinforcing the theme of containment. Not long after that, as I stood at the window checking the parking lot below, I saw Kelsey's car appear at the entrance of the new building lot, and the sight of the vehicle turning slowly along the lane made my chest tighten as I stepped back from the glass. I watched from behind the curtain gap as the car rolled past several rows, paused briefly near a spot with a clear view of the main door, then continued, and the slow scanning movement matched the earlier screenshot that suggested she was searching by building facade. I lowered the curtain and stepped away from the window. Then I moved to the entry and placed the door wedge firmly, and I positioned my phone so its camera view faced the interior entry space. Then I opened the camera and started recording, and the red indicator appeared on the screen as a visible acknowledgement that I needed a record of whatever came next. Later, the intercom panel outside my unit displayed a missed ring indicator on its small light, and the building app on my phone showed a visitor request notification with Kelsey's name, and the notification included a thumbnail photo of her face pulled from her contact card, making it unmistakable who was at the door. I did not grant entry, and instead, I saved the notification by taking a screenshot. Then I opened the building app settings and removed myself from the directory so my unit could not be found through the name search, and the setting change produced a confirmation banner that stayed on screen for a moment before fading. After that, another visitor request arrived, and then another, and the count of requests appeared beside the notification icon, each number incrementing in a visible escalation. Not long after that, I received a message from Ethan containing a screenshot of Kelsey's newest post, and the post showed the outside of my new building taken from the street with the building name visible on a small sign, and beneath it, Kelsey had added a caption implying she had found me, and the post already had comments forming underneath with reaction emojis and short phrases that encouraged her persistence. My hands tightened around the phone as I stared at the building sign in her photo, and the fact that the exterior had been posted publicly made the situation move from personal drama into a public locator. I saved Ethan's screenshot, then I opened my browser and searched the building name, and the search results displayed the building address and leasing office contact information, and the easy availability of that information made the exposure feel immediate and actionable. After that, I opened a new email draft addressed to the building management, and I attached Kelsey's post screenshot showing the building sign, and I included my lease confirmation page as proof of residency, and I sent the email with a subject line that referenced unauthorized posting and visitor attempts, and the sent confirmation appeared instantly. Then I opened the building app again and selected an option labeled Report Incident, and I uploaded the visitor request screenshots and the post screenshot, and the upload progress bars filled across the screen until each one turned into a completed thumbnail. When the report submitted, the app displayed a ticket number, and I took a screenshot of that ticket number and placed it in the same folder, and the ticket image became another visible marker that the situation had moved into official channels. Later, I turned my camera recording off and saved the file. Then I moved the phone to a charger so it would not die, and I sat on the air mattress with my shoes still on, my backpack near the door, and my keys in my pocket, and the arrangement of those objects made it clear I was prepared to move quickly if I needed to. Not long after that, my phone displayed another notification from Tessa, and the screenshot showed Kelsey posting again, this time tagging a handful of mutual contacts with a plea for help locating me, and the tag list included names I recognized, and the presence of those tags indicated she was widening the net. I saved the screenshot, then I opened my contacts and began sending the same brief instruction to each mutual connection, one by one, and the delivered indicators appeared like a row of stamped confirmations. And the task ended with my thumb still moving as the situation continued pushing forward into the next moment. My thumbs continued moving across my phone screen as I sent the same brief instruction to every mutual connection whose name appeared in Kelsey's tag list, and with each message the delivered indicator appeared beside my outgoing bubble like a stamped confirmation that another line had been closed. After that, I opened my social settings again and removed every remaining mutual follower who had recently interacted with Kelsey's posts, and the follower list shortened in visible jumps as each profile disappeared from my connections. Then I switched my profile to its most restrictive mode, so only approved names could view it, and the lock icon replaced the open profile icon immediately. Later, I opened my email and created another filter that routed any incoming message containing Kelsey's name or any of her known addresses into an archive folder, and the rule list updated to show the new filter as a clean line of text. Then I refreshed the inbox and watched the main view become emptier as the filter took effect. Not long after that, my phone displayed another building app notification, and the visitor request count increased again beneath Kelsey's name, and the repeated requests formed a vertical stack that made it look like a flood trying to push through a closed gate. I took another screenshot of the request stack, saved it into my folder, and then I opened the incident ticket screen and added the new screenshot as an update, and the ticket page refreshed to show an additional attachment thumbnail beneath the earlier ones. After that, I switched to my camera and aimed it toward the entry area again, and I started recording while keeping the phone propped against a heavy object on the counter, and the red recording indicator remained visible as a small circle that stayed steady, even while my hands shook slightly as I placed the door wedge more firmly and tested the secondary lock again. Later, I received a new message from my friend Miles containing a screenshot of Kelsey's most recent post, and this post included a close-up of the building sign and a photo of the main entrance keypad, and beneath it, Kelsey had added a caption that framed the scene as persistence, and the comment count had already grown enough to show a scrolling thread. I saved Miles's screenshot, then I opened my own browser and searched the building name again, and the results displayed the same public address and a contact listing, and the ease of finding the information made the post's impact feel immediate. After that, I opened my cloud folder and checked the backup status, and every file displayed a green checkmark, including the visitor request screenshots, the post screenshots, and the screen recording files, and the row of checkmarks looked like a locked archive being sealed. Not long after that, my phone vibrated with a message from my friend Nora, and Nora's screenshot showed a new story post from Kelsey that included a blurry photo taken upward at the building facade, and the story included a sticker that pulled up the building name in a searchable tag, making it easier for strangers to connect the facade to the address. I saved Nora's screenshot, then I opened the same platform and used its report function on Kelsey's story, attaching my own screenshot and selecting the option that referenced personal information exposure, and the report confirmation screen appeared with a short status banner that remained on screen until I closed it. After that, I moved through every platform where Kelsey had posted about me and repeated the same reporting action, and the sequence became mechanical, with each report producing a confirmation banner and each banner fading after a moment. leaving only the next post to address. Later I looked through the curtain gap again, and saw Kelsey's car still in the lot, now positioned where the driver could see the main door, and the car remained stationary long enough that the stillness itself felt deliberate. I stepped away from the window, picked up my keys, and moved my backpack closer to the entry. Then I sat on the air mattress with my phone recording and my shoes still on, and the arrangement of objects around me formed a visible readiness. Not long after that, the building app displayed another visitor request notification, and the thumbnail photo of Kelsey appeared again beside her name. And this time, a second notification appeared beneath it, showing an attempt to locate my name in the directory, and the app displayed a small line indicating that my directory visibility was disabled, confirming that my earlier setting change still held. After that, my friend Ethan's name appeared on my screen with an incoming message, and the message included a screenshot of a group chat where Kelsey had posted the building name again, and several mutual contacts reacted with emojis and short lines encouraging her, while other contacts posted warnings in the same thread telling her to stop. I saved Ethan's screenshot, then I opened my own group chat list and removed myself from every group that still included Kelsey, and each removal produced a small confirmation screen before the group vanished from my list, leaving a shorter, cleaner set of conversations. Later, I opened my contacts and pinned only my core circle to the top of my list, including Ethan, Tessa, Miles, and Nora, and the pinned row appeared as a strip of faces that stayed fixed while the rest of my contacts scrolled beneath, making my support network visually central and everything else secondary. Not long after that, my phone displayed a new notification on the incident ticket, and the building app showed an update status indicator that changed from pending to in review. And beneath it, a short line appeared stating that directory settings were being reinforced for my unit. I took a screenshot of that status update, saved it, and then refreshed the visitor request screen, and for the first time the repeated request count stopped increasing, leaving the stack frozen rather than growing. Later I checked the parking lot through the curtain gap again, and saw Kelsey's car begin moving slowly, and the vehicle rolled forward, paused near the exit, then continued out of the lot, and the visible departure created the first clean break in the sequence that had been building since her first visitor request. After that, I ended the recording on my phone, saved the file, and placed the device on its charger. Then I moved around the apartment and continued the practical setup tasks that required my hands and attention, including inflating the air mattress fully, arranging my document folder in a cabinet, and placing my laptop on the counter where it could be used without sitting on the floor. Later, I opened the moving checklist from the rental portal and checked off additional items, including utility setup and address updates, and each checkmark appeared beside the task line, slowly converting the list from open steps into completed ones. Not long after that, I received a message from my friend Tessa containing a fresh screenshot, and this one showed Kelsey's profile page with several posts missing, and the grid view had gaps where her earlier building photos had been, and the visible absence indicated removal rather than continuation. I opened the platform directly and searched Kelsey's page from a private browser view, and the profile that appeared was now set to private, with only a generic header visible and no public posts accessible, and the change was immediate and unmistakable compared to the earlier scrolling captions and growing comment counts. After that, I returned to my screenshot folder and opened the earlier images again. Then I placed them beside the current private page view and took a new screenshot that captured the contrast between public exposure and the locked profile screen, and the side-by-side comparison became another piece of the record. Later, I refreshed the building app visitor request screen again and saw no new requests, and the absence of new entries looked like a cleared dashboard, with Kelsey's name no longer appearing as an active visitor notification. Not long after that, an email arrived in my archived folder under the filter I had created, and the sender line displayed Kelsey's address, and the subject line contained only a short phrase that referenced the party and the apartment. I opened the email inside the archive view and saw a long block of text with paragraphs separated by blank lines, and the words included repeated references to cutting ties, to embarrassment, and to the way the party had unfolded in front of her friends. And the email ended with a line requesting a way to exchange remaining small items. I did not draft a response, and instead, I saved the email as a PDF through the mail client's export function. Then I placed the PDF into the same backup folder where the screenshots and recordings lived, and the new file appeared with a timestamp and a green check mark once the upload completed. Later, I opened a plain text document on my laptop and typed a short, structured plan that listed only visible actions for the next steps, including changing the mailing address at the post office, purchasing basic furniture, and avoiding any in-person contact with Kelsey, and I saved the document inside the same encrypted note system where I had stored key facts earlier. After that, I walked to the kitchen counter and cleared it completely, moving my phone, keys, and documents into their designated places, and the cleared counter space made the apartment look less like an emergency station and more like a normal living area. Not long after that, my friend Ethan arrived at the building entrance, and I met Ethan outside without leading Ethan to my unit door, and I carried only a small bag that contained essentials. Then I walked with Ethan toward a nearby coffee shop entrance, where we could sit in a public place without revealing more than necessary. Ethan kept his phone in his hand as he walked, and he showed me a screenshot of a mutual group chat where several friends posted new messages, and those messages included warnings to stop helping Kelsey. And the chat also included reactions from people who stated they were blocking her after seeing the building posts. I saved Ethan's screenshot into my folder. Then I watched Ethan remove Kelsey from Ethan's own contact list and block her number, and the blocked icon appeared beside her name on Ethan's screen, mirroring the lock icons I had placed earlier. After that, I opened my own phone and checked the mutual group chat list again, and I saw that several groups had gone inactive, with no new bubbles appearing, and the stillness of those threads looked like the social engine had finally begun to run out of fuel. Later, I returned to my apartment alone, placed the small bag on the counter, and locked the door behind me. Then I sat on the air mattress and opened my laptop to continue the remaining setup tasks. I filled out a change of address form online, and the confirmation page appeared with a reference number and a printable receipt, and I saved the receipt to my files, and then printed it, placing the paper into my document folder as another physical marker. After that, I ordered a basic bed frame and a small table, and the order confirmation screens displayed delivery dates and my new address, and the repetition of the new address across multiple confirmations made it harder for the old apartment to feel like home. Not long after that, I received another notification from the building app, and the incident ticket status changed from in review to resolved, and the resolution note stated that my unit was removed from the directory and that visitor access could not be requested under my name. And I took a screenshot of the resolved status and stored it beside the earlier ticket number image. Later, I stood in front of the window again and looked down at the parking lot, and Kelsey's car was no longer there, and the empty spaces below looked ordinary, even though my phone still sat face down on the counter, like it could light up at any moment. After that, I lowered the blinds, returned to the center of the room, and unpacked the last folded clothes into a drawer that still smelled like cardboard and shipping tape. Then I placed my keys into the small bowl on the counter and left my backpack near the entry instead of pushing it into a closet. I picked up my phone, opened the folder of screenshots, visitor requests, removed posts, and ticket updates, and scrolled until my thumb stopped on the newest image, and the record ended at a screen that still felt too fresh to belong to my life. Then I closed the folder, set the phone down again, and pressed the door wedge tighter with my foot before stepping back to look at the open delivery confirmation on my laptop screen, like a plan that had not arrived yet. I lay down on the air mattress with the room still mostly empty, and the entry still staged for movement, and the only thing that looked fully finished was the fact that I no longer had to pretend about what I was to Kelsey. What started as a strange moment at a party last week ended my 3-year relationship before that night was over. Thanks for watching Story Frame. Subscribe for more stories.